I never thought I'd be the type of person to snoop through my husband's phone. Yet here I was, standing in our kitchen on our third wedding anniversary, staring at a message that made my stomach drop. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same place, same time. Don't forget what we discussed. My name's Maggie, and until that moment, I thought I had the perfect marriage. Ryan and I met at a charity gala 4 years ago, where he charmed me with his wit and that crooked smile that made my heart skip. Now, watching the steam rise from the homemade pasta sauce I'd spent hours perfecting, I felt like an idiot. I only checked his phone because it kept buzzing while he was in the shower. 3 notifications from someone named CJ, all marked urgent. I told myself I was being helpful, that maybe it was work-related. Ryan had been putting in late hours at the office, claiming a big project needed his attention. I'd believed him. The front door opened, and I quickly set his phone back on the counter. Ryan walked in, his dark hair still damp from the shower, wearing the blue button-down shirt I'd given him last Christmas. "Something smells amazing," he said, wrapping his arms around my waist from behind. His cologne, usually comforting, made me want to pull away. "You've outdone yourself, Mags." I forced a smile. "Well, it is our anniversary." "About that." He released me, running a hand through his hair, his tell when he's nervous. "I hate to do this, but Thompson called. Emergency client meeting tomorrow morning. I need to review the files tonight." My hand tightened around the wooden spoon. "On our anniversary. I'll make it up to you this weekend, I promise." He kissed my cheek. "We'll do something special." I watched him grab his phone and briefcase, making excuses about deadlines and client expectations. The same story I'd heard for weeks. Only now, watching him check his phone with barely concealed eagerness, everything felt different. "Ryan," I called out as he reached the door. "Who's CJ?" He paused for just a fraction of a second, so brief I almost missed it. "New client." "Why?" "Just curious." I stirred the sauce, which was starting to burn. "They seem pretty urgent about meeting tomorrow." "Just business, babe." He flashed that crooked smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Don't wait up." The door closed behind him, and I stood alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the smell of burning garlic and betrayal. My carefully planned anniversary dinner bubbled forgotten on the stove as I pulled out my phone and opened my contacts. I needed to talk to Ethan. Sunday brunch at my parents' house used to be my favorite tradition. Today, watching Ryan charm my family with that perfect smile of his, I could barely keep my coffee down. 3 days had passed since our ruined anniversary dinner, and every time he touched his phone, my skin crawled. "Maggie, sweetheart, you've barely touched your food," Mom said, her teacher's intuition picking up on my mood. "Are you feeling all right?" Before I could answer, Dad cleared his throat, commanding attention the way only Walter Harper could. "Actually, I have an announcement that might cheer everyone up." He beamed at Ryan. "The bakery chain is expanding to the West Coast, and we need someone with fresh ideas to oversee the expansion. Ryan, I'd like you to take the lead." The fork slipped from my hand, clattering against my plate. Ryan's eyes lit up with an intensity one hadn't seen in months. "Not even on our anniversary." "Walter, I'm honored," Ryan said, reaching for my hand under the table. I let him take it, but his touch felt foreign. "This is an incredible opportunity." "Well, you've proven yourself these past 3 years," Dad continued. "You're family now, and family is everything in this business." Mom touched my arm. "Maggie, you're awfully quiet." "Just surprised," I managed, forcing a smile. "It's wonderful news." Ryan squeezed my hand. "Think about it, babe. We could move to California, start fresh. It's perfect timing with your freelance work picking up." My stomach lurched. Move. You never mentioned wanting to leave Chicago. It's just an idea, he backpedaled, but I caught the flash of annoyance in his eyes. We can discuss it later. Dad launched into details about profit margins and expansion plans, but I was stuck on Ryan's words. Start fresh. Was that what his secret meetings were about? Planning an escape. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan, how you holding up? Coffee later. Speaking of business, Ryan's voice cut through my thoughts, I might need to step out early. Have that client meeting to prepare for. The one with CJ. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Ryan's hand tightened on mine. Different client, actually. Thompson account. On a Sunday. Mom asked, her brow furrowing. The restaurant business never sleeps, Ryan laughed, but it sounded hollow. Right, Walter? Dad nodded approvingly, but I noticed Mom watching me with growing concern. I typed a quick response to Ethan, please. Need to talk. Usual spot in an hour. Maggie, Ryan whispered as Dad continued talking, everything okay? I met his eyes, searching for any trace of the man I married. You tell me, Ryan. Is everything okay? His phone buzzed in his pocket. He didn't check it, but I saw his jaw clench. Whatever was happening, one thing was clear, the man sitting beside me was a stranger wearing my husband's face. And I needed to find out why. The coffee shop where Ethan and I had spent countless hours studying in college hadn't changed. Neither had Ethan, with his messy brown hair and concerned green eyes. He was already waiting at our usual corner table when I arrived, 2 steaming mugs in front of him. You look like hell, he said, pushing my chai latte toward me. Thanks. That's exactly what every woman wants to hear. I slumped into the chair, the events of brunch still churning in my stomach. Want to tell me what's really going on? Because the Maggie I know doesn't skip dessert at her dad's famous Sunday brunch unless something's seriously wrong. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, debating how much to share. Have you ever looked at someone you thought you knew completely and suddenly realized they're a stranger? Ethan's expression shifted. What did Ryan do? Before I could answer, movement near the counter caught my eye. A woman in a red blazer was ordering coffee, her perfectly styled blonde hair and confident stance drawing attention. But it wasn't her appearance that made my blood run cold, it was the way she kept checking her phone, smiling at whatever messages she was receiving. That's her, I whispered, gripping my mug tighter. CJ. Ethan followed my gaze. You know her? No, but I've seen her name on Ryan's phone. Clara something. She's a real estate agent, I looked her up after finding those texts. My voice cracked. She's married too. Mags. Ethan reached across the table, but I pulled back. Watch, I said as Clara's phone rang. She answered with a laugh that carried across the cafe. Ryan has a meeting right now, remember? A Sunday client meeting. We both watched as Clara gathered her coffee and headed for the door, still talking on her phone. The view from the office is amazing. Yes, I'm heading there now. Don't worry, he thinks I'm showing properties. Ethan's jaw tightened. Want me to follow her? No, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. I need to handle this myself. But first, I need to know everything. Who she is, how long this has been going on, and what Ryan's really planning with my father's business. You think the expansion offer is connected? I pulled out my phone, showing him Ryan's recent search history. I'd managed to see real estate listings in California, divorce lawyers, offshore accounts. I think this goes way deeper than an affair. He's planning something, Ethan, and my family's business is involved. Jesus, Maggie. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. What are you going to do? I watched Clara's red blazer disappear around the corner, heading in the direction of Ryan's office. I'm going to protect my family. And then I'm going to make them both regret ever meeting each other. The determination in my voice surprised even me. The old Maggie might have cried or run away. But that Maggie died the moment she found those texts on her anniversary. Ryan wasn't home when I finally worked up the courage to confront him. Instead, I found a receipt from an upscale restaurant downtown crumpled in his jacket pocket, dinner for two from the night before. My hands shook as I smoothed out the paper, noting the time stamp, 8:47 p.m. He told me he was working late at the office. The front door opened, and Ryan walked in, loosening his tie. He froze when he saw me standing there, his jacket in one hand, the receipt in the other. Going through my things now. His voice was eerily calm. Funny, I was about to ask if you enjoyed your client dinner last night. I held up the receipt. The one where you ordered 2 glasses of champagne and that chocolate soufflé Clara loves so much. The color drained from his face. You're jumping to conclusions. Am I? Because I saw her today, heading to your office for another client meeting. My voice cracked, but I pressed on. How long, Ryan? How long have you been lying to me? He ran his hand through his hair, that nervous tulle again. This isn't what you think. Clara's helping me with the California expansion. We're looking at properties. Stop. The word came out sharper than I intended. I saw your searches. Divorce lawyers. Offshore accounts. What are you really planning with my father's business? Something shifted in his eyes then, the mask slipping to reveal something colder underneath. Your father's business needs fresh blood, Maggie. Someone who isn't afraid to think bigger than artisanal bread and family traditions. You mean someone willing to steal from their own family? It's not stealing if you're smart about it. He stepped closer, and I fought the urge to back away. Think about it, Mags. We could have everything we've ever wanted. The California expansion is just the beginning. We. I laughed, the sound hollow. There is no we anymore, Ryan. There probably never was. His phone buzzed. We both knew who it was. Go ahead, I said. Answer it. Tell Clara her timing is perfect. Don't do anything stupid, Maggie. His tone was almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. Think about your father. About the family name. Some things are better kept quiet. I watched him grab his keys and head for the door, probably running straight to Clara. But his threat hung in the air, clear as day. If I exposed him, my family's reputation would suffer too. The front door clicked shut, and I sank to the floor, clutching his jacket. The familiar scent of his cologne mixed with something else, floral perfume that wasn't mine. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. I'm Mark Jensen. Clara's husband. Suddenly, the game had changed entirely. The cafe where I agreed to meet Mark Jensen was nearly empty. He looked nothing like I'd imagined, tall, with kind eyes and nervous hands that kept adjusting his watch. The same watch I'd noticed on Clara's wrist in photos from their anniversary dinner last month. They've been planning this for months, Mark said, sliding a folder across the table. Clara's been moving money around, setting up accounts I can't access. Sound familiar? I opened the folder, my coffee growing cold beside me. Bank statements, property listings, emails between Ryan and Clara discussing the California expansion. How did you get these? I'm a tech consultant. Clara isn't as careful with her passwords as she thinks. He leaned forward. But the business angle, that's new. What exactly does your family's company have to do with this? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom: "Your father's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow. Ryan convinced him to fast-track the expansion. Please come. They're moving faster than we thought," I muttered, showing Mark the message. "There's something else." Mark pulled out his phone, playing a recording. Clara's voice filled the space between us. "Once the transfer goes through, they'll never trace it back to us. Ryan's got the perfect cover with his wife's family." My hand started shaking. "They're going to steal from my father. And disappear with the money." Mark's voice was gentle but firm. "We can stop them, Maggie. But we need to be smart about this." "Smart?" I laughed bitterly. "My husband is planning to destroy my family's business, and I'm supposed to be smart." "Yes." Mark reached across the table, steadying my trembling hands. "Because if we expose them now, they'll have time to cover their tracks. We need evidence that'll stick." A woman in a red blazer walked past our window, and I flinched, but it wasn't Clara. Still, the sight made something click in my mind. The board meeting tomorrow. Ryan will have to present his expansion plans. And my father keeps all sensitive documents in his home office. Ryan's been there countless times, knows exactly where everything is. I met Mark's eyes. "While he's distracted at the meeting, we could search their apartment," Mark finished. "Find concrete proof of what they're planning." My phone buzzed again. "Ryan, where are you? We need to talk about tomorrow." "He's worried," I said, more to myself than Mark. "Good. Maggie." Mark's voice had an edge of warning. "Remember, we're doing this to protect our families, not for revenge." But as I stared at Ryan's message, remembering his threat about keeping things quiet, I wasn't so sure anymore. Maybe protection and revenge weren't so different after all. "Tomorrow then," I said, standing up. "We'll see what secrets they're really hiding." The board meeting was exactly the distraction we needed. While Ryan charmed the directors with his expansion plans, Mark and I searched their apartment. I used my key to let us in, trying to ignore how wrong it felt to be sneaking around my own home. Clara mentioned a hidden USB drive, Mark whispered, heading for Ryan's home office. Said it contained everything they'd need for their fresh start. I moved to the bedroom, my hands shaking as I opened Ryan's dresser. The familiar scent of his cologne made my stomach turn. Under perfectly folded shirts, I found it, a false bottom, just like the one in my father's office. "Mark," I called softly. "I think I..." The front door clicked open. "You really should have changed the locks, Maggie." Clara's voice carried through the apartment, followed by the sound of high heels on hardwood. "Though I suppose we should thank you for making this so easy." I froze, clutching the USB drive I'd just discovered. Mark appeared in the doorway, his face pale. Behind him stood Ryan, looking more amused than angry. "Searching our place while I'm at the meeting. Pretty predictable, babe." Ryan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "But then, you've always been predictable. It's what made this so simple." "The board approved everything," Clara added, moving to stand beside Ryan. "The transfer is already processing. By tomorrow morning, the expansion fund will be safely offshore." My voice cracked. "Dad trusted you. And you trusted me," Ryan countered. "That's the thing about trust, Maggie, it makes people blind. Your father's too focused on family legacy to see what's right in front of him. Just like you were." "We have proof," Mark stepped forward. "Everything you've planned, it's all documented." Clara laughed, the sound sharp and cold. "You mean this?" She held up an identical USB drive. "The one with all the evidence." Funny how easy it is to plant false trails when you know someone's watching. The drive in my hands suddenly felt heavy. A decoy. They'd known we'd look for it. The real money's already moved, Ryan said, almost gently. By the time you show the drive to anyone, we'll be gone. And if you try to stop us. He shrugged. Well, your father's reputation won't survive the scandal. Your choice, Maggie. I looked at Mark, saw my own helplessness reflected in his eyes. We'd walked right into their trap, thinking we were so clever. Now my family's legacy hung by a thread, and I held the scissors. Tick-tock, Clara smiled, checking her watch, Mark's anniversary gift. What's it going to be? The USB drive felt like it was burning through my palm. Sometimes revenge, I realized, was just another word for failure. The silence in my father's office felt suffocating as I placed both USB drives on his desk, the decoy Ryan had planted, and another one. The real one. The one Mark had secretly cloned from Clara's laptop weeks ago. While she was too busy planning her escape with Ryan to notice her husband's tech skills at work. You should read this first, I said, pushing the real drive toward Dad. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Ryan burst through the door, Clara close behind. The confidence on their faces faltered when they saw my father already reviewing the documents on his screen. Walter, Ryan started, but Dad held up his hand. Offshore accounts, Dad said quietly. Shell companies. Fake invoices. You've been quite busy, Ryan. Clara stepped forward. Whatever she's showing you, it's all lies. We can explain. Can you explain this? I pulled out my phone, playing the recording Mark had captured during their confrontation in our apartment. Their own voices filled the room, detailing every step of their plan. Ryan's mask finally cracked. You really think anyone will believe you? The desperate wife, making up stories about her husband. They'll believe the paper trail, Mark said, stepping in from the hallway. The one leading right to those accounts you set up. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize my own wife's password patterns? Clara's perfectly composed face crumbled. Mark. Save it. His voice was ice. The police have everything they need. They're probably at our apartment right now. Ryan lunged for the door, but Ethan was there, blocking his path. I hadn't seen my old friend look so angry since we were kids. You never loved her, did you? Ethan asked, his quiet fury filling the room. She was just a way to get to her family's money. Love? Ryan laughed, but there was panic in his eyes. Wake up, Maggie. You were convenient. The perfect trust fund wife with a successful family business. God, you made it so easy. No, I cut him off. You made it easy. Because you never bothered to learn anything real about my family. I turned to Dad. Like how Mom insisted on prenups for both me and Sarah after what happened with Uncle Jack 20 years ago. Dad nodded, a sad smile on his face. The expansion fund was never accessible without board approval. And the board doesn't meet until next week. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made Ryan and Clara turn. 2 police officers appeared in the doorway, and I watched the last traces of Ryan's confidence disappear. You know what your biggest mistake was? I asked as the officers moved forward. Thinking that family loyalty was a weakness. In this family, it's always been our strength. The handcuffs clicked shut, and with them, the last 3 years of my life. But as I watched them being led away, I felt something unexpected, not satisfaction, not revenge, but relief. Sometimes justice was enough. 6 months after Ryan's arrest, I stood in front of my father's original bakery, breathing in the scent of fresh bread and new beginnings. The Harper and Family sign gleamed in the morning sun, newly restored just like everything else in my life. The bell chimed as I pushed open the door. Mark sat at our usual corner table, looking more at peace than I'd seen him since the trial. "The tech startup's really taking off," he said as I joined him. "Thanks for convincing me to finally do it." "You convinced yourself. Sometimes we need to hit bottom to find our way back up." Dad emerged from the kitchen, flour dusting his apron. He'd started baking again after everything happened, saying it helped him think. The expansion plans had changed, smaller now, more focused on family-run locations instead of rapid growth. "Ready for the board meeting?" he asked, setting down fresh croissants. "Actually, I pulled out my portfolio. I have some ideas about rebranding the local shops. Something that emphasizes the family connection." The bell chimed again. Ethan walked in, carrying coffee and wearing that crooked smile that had started showing up more often lately. Our eyes met, and something warm and familiar flickered between us, not the burning intensity I'd mistaken for love with Ryan. But something steadier. Something real. "Sorry I'm late," he said, sliding into the seat beside me. His hand found mine under the table, and I didn't pull away. "The divorce papers came through yesterday," I said quietly, surprising myself by how little it hurt to say it. "Ryan's lawyer tried one last time to negotiate terms." "And?" Mark asked. "I told them the truth is non-negotiable." I squeezed Ethan's hand. "Some things are worth more than money." Dad nodded, pride and sadness mixing in his eyes. "Your mother always said you were the strongest of us all. Took me until now to see it." The morning crowd started filtering in, filling the bakery with chatter and life. Through the window, I could see Mom arranging flowers in the planters outside, making everything beautiful again, the way she always did. "You know," Ethan said, watching me watch my family, "you never did tell me what made you suspicious in the first place. Before the texts, before everything." I thought about that anniversary night, standing in my kitchen with burning sauce and a breaking heart. Sometimes you just know when something's not right. The trick is being brave enough to admit it. The sun streamed through the windows, catching the gold lettering on the wall. "Family is more than blood, it's a choice we make every day." I'd finally learned what that meant. Sometimes the family you choose is the one that was there all along, waiting for you to find your way home. And sometimes, that's the sweetest revenge of all.